welcome everyone to the Chang Robotics Brand Call. It's of course Tuesday, June 4th, and it's great to see everybody. Wonderful to be here. We have two distinguished guests that I look forward to talking with here in a few minutes, and we have some great team members and folks in terms of updates, and we're looking forward to the discussion. I want to first of all welcome Matt Chang, and Matt will be taking the first discussion time to update us on the Chang Robotics progress. We'll also have an interview with Tim Papandreou and Marc Manning, and then we'll wrap things up before 11:30. So it's great to have everyone here, and I want to now turn over the time to Matt Chang.
Super, thanks, Don. Yeah, Matt Chang here, founder of Chang Robotics, and we're going to take you through some company updates for 10 to 12 minutes here, and just let you guys get a sneak peek into some of the exciting stuff that we're up to. As a quick reminder, some of our content that is customer related will be generic. We sign so many NDAs that rather than try to keep it straight what we can and can't say, we've kept some of the project work quasi-anonymous, but that shouldn't take away from the accomplishment of the team. So yeah, we can go ahead and jump into it. So a quick update on a new and exciting market for us. We're now about a little more than 12 months into our healthcare journey, and we got into the space by being recruited by one of the nation's top healthcare providers to provide robotic systems in hospitals. And they came looking for us because of our track record in manufacturing and e-commerce and government automation spaces. And their thesis was that they wanted an outside-the-box firm that had demonstrated performance and ingenuity in other industries to bring it into healthcare. This was after a search of advertised healthcare robotics companies, and those companies had largely been unable to perform and innovate in the hospital space. The pair of robots you see there are part of a larger fleet, and those robots are patient-facing. They work with nurses. The main purpose of the robots is to support nurses and to help nurses reclaim their time. We're very excited to announce the results of this initial pilot deployment that happened on 2 floors of a high-rise hospital. That project is now going into full hospital deployment. So at the end of this year, we'll be operating on 7 floors, and then pending a major hospital expansion, we'll be operating on 9 floors or 10 floors sometime next year. So the mass adoption is taking place, and we're very much involved in supporting our customer demonstrate the first scaled use case of autonomous robots in a hospital. And the results are excellent. So far, with a limited pilot, we've helped nurses reclaim 10% of their day. So the current nursing shortage nationwide stands at about 10% of nurses are missing from the enrollment due to resignation and lack of recruitment into the nursing field. So in pilot 1, being able to show that we can help nurses reclaim 10% of their time in a day takes a major bite at the apple of reducing the national nursing shortage. The other part that's super exciting is robotics and automation only work if there's workforce adoption. And so we are proud to announce that after the 2 floors of pilot, we are now at 100% nursing adoption. And what that means in simple terms is that 100% of the time, the nurse has the ability to use his or her tablet to summon a robot, order supplies, or do some mundane tasks that they choose to do so. So the nurses are embracing the technology. They're demonstrating that even with a limited use case, they would prefer using automation and technology to help them do their jobs. And that means that these robotics have been elevated to cobot status. We use the word cobot a lot at our company. Traditionally in the industry, it stands for collaborative robot, meaning a robot that can work with a human to jointly perform a task. But recently, a nurse suggested that we rebrand this to coworker robot. So we may choose to go with that in the future. Your feedback and input certainly welcome. So these coworker robots have joined the workforce. They are helping nurses, and they are taking a lot of the travel time and the ergonomic wear and tear out of the nurse's daily life. Additionally, we're super excited to announce that we've just started conversations with a major national hospital chain that wants to be the second to embrace this deployment. This second chain of hospitals focuses heavily on care for low income and the people in our population that don't have health care. So we love the mission of that. We love that technology can be used to serve the underserved. So expect to hear more about that probably later this year as we start to engage with our second healthcare chain to really make sure that robots are part of the national nursing shortage, and that generally we're making nurses' lives better. By doing that, I think we'll all experience better healthcare. Okay, now for kind of the bread and butter of our operation, and what most people associate us with is our ability to innovate in the manufacturing arena. 2024 has been a really busy year for us, and we are very happy to have signed up a number of master service agreements with Fortune 500 manufacturers. That has resulted in now 2 greenfield projects that are under design. And we support our customers from cradle to grave with this. Usually we come in before there's a strategy, and we help the executive team and the C-suite team at our customers establish what is a robotic strategy, what does transformation look like. We help them with a variety of workforce challenges, technology challenges, information technology and operational technology readiness challenges. And then the number one thing that we do is we wrap the whole thing in cybersecurity. The world of cybersecurity is daunting, even for the biggest operations. I think everybody that would attend this call has been notified by somebody that they lost their information and that their personal information is now in the hands of hackers or in the dark web. So that can be crippling for a large organization that is supply chain focused if they lose their digital assets, or if they lose their ability to communicate with their digital systems across the supply chain or manufacturing network. As such, we put a paramount focus on cybersecurity. And as we're deploying lots of connected IoT-enabled devices, including autonomous robots, we make sure that we have the right balance of on-premise, behind the firewall computing, and then certain analytics that add value to the leadership are happening in the cloud, but only after we've carefully treated the data and scrubbed the data to make sure that it's anonymous and protects privacy. That theme carries from healthcare, which we started with, which has to be compliant with HIPAA, and moves into manufacturing, which is all about securing the enterprise and making sure that you're completely resilient. So as we're starting these 2 greenfield projects, it also plays into a theme that you may have heard me talk about extensively over the last year, which is reshoring. Manufacturing is coming back to America. American companies are choosing to produce domestically as opposed to producing overseas. And the global supply chain changes that have happened over the last 4 years have really put a focus on you have to make locally, and you have to have access to your supply chain and inventory. By putting oceans between your manufacturing assets and your customer base, you put that at risk. And so it's not that we see people closing factories overseas. We see them choosing to put their next factory or their next production capacity expansion in the United States. So this slide is really a testament to that happening, and we're very much in the center of that, supporting numerous clients in the manufacturing space. We're also hot in the economic development right now, as we often join our customers' teams well before a site is even thought of. We then help them find sites. We help them network with different states, locations, municipalities, and industrial parks, and find what is the right place for their next network expansion of manufacturing capacity. So that's the second bullet point you see there, is that we are currently very much in the weeds in site location and economic development. And then the final bullet point would be just kind of what's in the hopper, which, as I alluded to, we have numerous MSAs in progress with Fortune 500 companies. those companies are now starting to think strategically. What does the future of our company look like? How does automation play a role? How does AI play a role? And how can we start to put in a plan that will take years to implement, but we're taking the right steps today with the end in mind? And so that is something that we're very happy to do as a service to our customers. We generally do it with a understanding that certain technology is ready for prime time right now. Certain technology is proven, it is ready to be installed, and it can make immediate productivity and yield gains for our clients. Certain are coming online, and we have a 1 to 3 year horizon of when those technologies will be available. So we have those mapped into the master plan for technology for our clients. And then certain things are still in dream space. They may be still in academia. And the way we bring those online is by leveraging an extensive network of academic partners so that we can get through the basic research that's required to then develop prototype technology and then eventually onboard this technology at scale and at the right cost. So that summarizes our manufacturing initiatives to date. And then finally, with federal grants, this is a huge opportunity for most American companies. Federal grants are dominating the headlines. The federal government has passed historic stimulus to support domestic manufacturing, especially if there are sustainability or energy related components to the project. So what we're doing is we have a team of professional grant writers. We also have a team of professional researchers and scientists led by Dr. Timothy Way out of Northwestern University. And what we do is we take our clients' projects or their programs, we find the attributes that are compelling for the federal government, and we match make those to FOAs, which are funding opportunity announcements. We then begin the federal grant application process, and we have several grants. You can see the stats on screen with the National Science Foundation and the Department of Energy. For many customers, the end destination is either a sizable federal grant that will help them with their investments that they're already making in the US, or a Department of Energy loan, which is known as the LPO program out of the Department of Energy. And so we have several of those on track right now, and it is a value-added service that complements the engineering and planning that we're already doing, and also enhances the business case, making American business more competitive. And another element that supports this strategy of planning, design engineering, and grant recruitment is IP development. And so what we look for are transformational technologies that are in the very early research stages, and we try to map in a strategy to get those to commercialization. After all, a company can only use new technology and research if it's been commercialized. And so we have a couple here that we want to highlight, which are, the first one is around getting plastics out of your food. You cannot go online and read anything about health without understanding microplastics and just the sheer volume of nanoplastics and microplastics that humans are ingesting into their bodies now. This is a byproduct of our modern way of life. Microplastics appear to be the modern asbestos or lead. And what are the long-term health effects of ingesting these plastics? We don't know yet. Only time will tell. But it does appear to have major health consequences. And so the first icon there demonstrates that we are scaling technology. We're in the process of commercializing and scaling technology that will remove plastic from your food products. And the number one, I guess, kind of villain in this space is PFAS, and PFAS is on nearly everything. It's in your clothing, it's on your food products, it's in your beverages, and therefore it makes its way into the body. And if we can replace PFAS with a natural and organic compound that can be derived from natural materials such as coffee husks, then we can make the planet more sustainable, we can improve our water system, and we can make people's bodies healthier. So we are at the very tipping point of scaling out this technology and commercializing. We are actually working with a number of Fortune 500 food producers and food retailers to find out who will be the first significant company to deploy our technology into their food products and the food packaging so that the plastics come out. The next one is that we are also exploring transformational technology such as using X-ray as a sensor for robotics. And we have demonstrated multiple successful use cases in partnership with Georgia Tech. And what we're doing there is we are taking X-ray, and instead of treating it like a medical device, we're treating it like a robotic sensor. Robots are already controlled by LiDAR and presence detectors and a myriad of sensors. Adding another sensor to the tool belt for robotics has the potential to unlock a lot of new use cases. And specifically at Georgia Tech, what we tested and demonstrated is that we can take an X-ray sensor and we can guide a robot to robotically carve and process meat. During COVID, meat plants got a lot of attention at basically the conditions that people work at. It's cold temperatures, it's high rates of speed, people are holding knives. It is inherently a dangerous task and a generally undesirable job for the workforce. And so by implementing robotics into tough environments such as meat processing facilities, we can make major step function improvements in the way that we process our food and the way that food is consumed and the health and safety of workers. That's just the beginning. The opportunities here are really limitless. And every time we go to talk about this, somebody from the audience brings us a new use case that is exciting and completely makes sense. So we're excited to see how X-ray will play a part in the future of robotic systems. And then finally, as we have now jumped headfirst into the healthcare space, we are developing patents and have filed patents around numerous healthcare applications, thinking about what does an autonomous hospital look like? And if the future of hospitals is to use robots to make healthcare workers more efficient and make their jobs more enjoyable and to improve outcomes for patients, then we should be forward looking at this. So we are actively recruiting technology partners that can help us with this, and we are actively protecting our ideas and designs with patents.
Welcome guest, Tim Papandreou. And Tim, a lot of people, he really needs no introduction. Please check out his LinkedIn profile. Tim, it's great to welcome you today, and we're so pleased to have you as our first guest on the Chang Robotics Brand Call. Welcome, and great to see you today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be here. I'm just hoping everyone can see me and hear me. That's the main thing.
We definitely can hear you. We see your image up, and we'll hopefully get you on camera here in a second. And I'll go ahead and get started, Tim. You know, one of the things that we love when we read about, you know, your content in Forbes, on LinkedIn and other places is just how futuristic you see the world, and how you can, you know, make sense of it for some of us. And so maybe let's start out by asking you to describe what bridging the gap between bleeding edge innovations, their real world applications, and the future impact they'll have on the way we as a society live, work, and play.
Yeah, it's these are not small questions, but they, you know, this is what keeps me going all the time. You know, I've had this unique ability from a while back to see the signals early and to basically figure out these patterns and trends. And I think it's just the way that my brain works, but it's a bit of a systems thinking approach of just seeing multiple things happen at the same time. I'm not a multitasker, so just be clear, I can't do that. But it's more of the being able to see these different things happen at the same time. And one of the things that's been really valuable in this process is just seeing where things are, where they can potentially go, and then take it to the next level. Okay, what would that actually look like? Roll that right out. And it's a bit of like how sci-fi works. If you guys are a sci-fi fan, they take what's possible and then go to what's probable, and then go really out there and say, okay, well, what would that look like if we went all the way out? So like what, you know, Matt was talking about robotics, you know, in the current form are pretty clunky. They're pretty like, you know, they're moving quite, you know, animatronically. But imagine a world where they just look like us and there's no real difference, right? That's going to be coming sooner than we think. Not tomorrow, but it's in process. And that comes down to like our workers, for example, the eyeballs and the dexterity of our fingers. If we can emulate that, we can do a lot of these different things that Matt and team are really excited about. But to start in those discussions about those big moonshot ideas that we have is to really think about where is it that we want to go with where we're at right now. So here is the big problem that we have. This is the issue that we have. Matt was talking about PFAS, for example. What's the breakthrough technology, and what's the path to get there? And what I love doing is dreaming up the big moonshot, the huge idea, taking people way out there, but then bringing them back to the ground and operationalizing it step by step. And so the first thing is really about how you bridge those gaps is you really have to understand what are we actually trying to do and ask the big question, why are we doing this? Why is this important? What are we trying to solve? And as you go through those steps, you learn very quickly that you need to test things out. You need to try some things out because we have reams and reams of data on testimonials or on reports, on studies, etc. But if they haven't actually been grounded in real application and reality, then it's just basically an idea. And one pilot is worth a million anecdotes. So you just really need to know that you've really got to just try this out and test it out. But then you just can't test it out in a vacuum. You have to test it out in the real world, in a real world application with real clients, with real customers, with real feedback. So you can see, does this actually make sense, in the current form? And then really bringing in very diverse perspectives. And I don't mean just, gender, race, those kind of perspectives, but also lived experiences. Like people who are, for example, in different worlds, not just computer science engineers or civil engineers, for example, but other people who've worked in the world of society, because we have so many different people with so many different backgrounds. And if you can bring those people in strategically at the right times, you start to get a sense of what the market will actually respond to and how the market will actually understand this. And the best example I can give you is, working as an advisor at X, they were the very first to bring in virtual reality glasses, which were called the Google Glass. Great idea, great concept, all was good. It was too early for the market. The market wasn't ready for this. And, people got thrown out of bars in San Francisco for video recording people. But now fast forward to the Meta glasses, and people are a little bit more open to it. So sometimes these amazing ideas are just too early, and sometimes they just haven't been really looked at properly in the real world. And there's other times where it's a great idea, the timing is right, just the product market fit is just not there yet, and so we have those kind of situations. So the idea is always like, massive idea, great problem, breakthrough technology, find the right application, test it in the real world, work on the hardest thing first. It's always easy to work on the little stuff first, but you've got to work on the hardest problem first, because that's where you get a lot of your stress testing. And then get comfortable with this idea of it's not failure, it's learning, right? Our currency in this phase of product is not to make money. Our currency is learning. And if we can learn and learn and learn by iterating and iterating, just like anybody has little kids, I have a little one right now, it's like we've got to let them make some mistakes, let them try things out. And if you can create that culture in your company of the currency is learning for right now, then you'll get to the hard currency later. And I think that's a really important lesson that I've learned in my career as well.
Oh, I love that. And as a founding, as one of the early stage members of the team at Waymo, I know you've experienced this firsthand.
Oh, yeah.
And so give us an idea of maybe how automation might change industrial applications as we move forward. And maybe since you've been part in ideating how airports could run in the future, give us an idea of how things might change and evolve and make it not only better for us as passengers, so to speak, but for those who have to operate these large and complicated organizations like an airport or like a municipality, or for that matter, a ski resort or something.
Yeah, so these massive campus, in these big campus operational systems require multiple systems to basically sync. And they make the extraordinary ordinary, So like if you go to the airport, well, you buy your ticket, you go to the airport, you board the plane takes off, lands, you get out. That was a very ordinary experience, but that took an incredible orchestra of people and systems behind to make this work. And when it works all the time, it's great. And then you invariably get delays, there's weather, mechanics, etc. And people literally melt down. It's like, well, a decade or 2 decades ago, you couldn't even get Wi-Fi on your plane. So what are you complaining about? So people become normalized to things very quickly, which is an extraordinary opportunity to see how the world of automation basically makes things, just removes all the barriers to our everyday life. And that's what automation's been focusing on nonstop for the last decade, is how do we remove those barriers to our everyday life? And I think that from what I'm seeing and just looking at where the trends are going, we're going to have fully automated campuses, whether they, like you said, airports, resorts, anything that do basically that moves people or things will become fully automated. And what does that mean? It doesn't mean that there'll be no people there at all. There's always going to be humans in the loop, always going to have people overseeing things, because invariably anything made of plastic, glass, and steel breaks down. It's got gears, things just basically don't work. And so the question so much is not will automation come into these systems, it's when they'll come, what is the default for when things break down? Because that's when you notice it as a person, right? We love Wi-Fi, we know when it doesn't work, but it's how quickly can we fix it, right? How quickly can we get ourselves back to our what we quote unquote normal way of living? And that'll be the same thing for airports, big campuses, ports, etc. It's things happen. We have shocks in the system. We're going to have increasing weather events, as we know globally. These things affect a lot of the on-time performance and services. What is the way to get through that? And my belief will be that there'll always be humans in that space. What we also have to understand, I think Matt made a really good point before about undesirable or dangerous work. We have normalized this idea that a certain class of people are just going to be relegated to doing really hard, difficult, dangerous, and menial type work. And that is going to be no more with automation. Industrialized automation means that the hardest, most dangerous, most monotonous, most difficult types of roles should be roboticized and automated so that people can basically upskill and do more of the nuanced, person to person, human to human type work, which requires a lot of precision, because our eyes and our fingers are never going to be replaced by technology, because it's taken us millions of years to evolve, and we've only been doing this for a couple of decades, so it's going to take a long time. So I think that's where the value opportunity is. But in industrial applications, for example, just think of anything that gets made, built, processed, and delivered, that will be in the hands of some sort of robotic application. And what that means is three things: quality control, transparency, and affordability. And the idea that anybody, anywhere in the world can access the internet, can learn anything they want to learn, can be mentored by an AI agent, and then can make something and sell it, that's transformative. That truly democratizes the global economy, and it's not just relegated to the industrialized north. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of this play out, is in the middle income countries, the areas that are just developing their networks. Those are fundamental. I did a project near the Galapagos Islands that they had 3G. They didn't have Wi-Fi, and with Starlink, they got basically ubiquitous Wi-Fi. And within 6 months, a whole new entrepreneurial class of people just manifested. And so those are huge things just with Wi-Fi, right? Having ubiquitous Wi-Fi. So imagine having that with AI, with robotics, and with some skills. You really can change the material well-being of people in ways that we can't even imagine yet. So those are the really exciting things for me that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Thank you, Tim. One quick question, maybe one anecdote or experience from your career that has made such an impression on you and you think will impact the future for your daughter and maybe even for all of us in the near term, the near 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, so I think it was basically working on the team that launched Waymo. Seeing that technology, um, the idea that we will shift from being drivers to being riders of a system. Basically, it's a smart AI phone on wheels, right? This is basically what automated driving is. But it isn't just that; it's the idea that we will not basically default to getting in a car and driving. And unfortunately, we have 1.5 million people killed every year. The biggest cause of fatalities for Generation Z is driving, right? So we have to figure this out. And it's because of all the issues. We've got bad road design, people are distracted, all these different things. And now people don't even drive anymore. They just follow Google Maps, right? So that's really not really even participating in this. So the biggest impact for me is in this space of if we can make it safer, more accessible and more affordable to get around, it means that people have access to opportunity. They can now go to jobs that doesn't require them to have to own and operate a vehicle. It's the number one reason why people don't have a full-time job is because they can't afford a car. They can't get a car because they don't have a job. It's this vicious cycle. So if we can have the robots do the driving for us and get us to our jobs and to our friends and family and our medical appointments, that will be transformative. And then my daughter won't have to get a driver's license. So that's to me the biggest opportunity. But we'll see. We'll see. It's getting better and better, and it's iterating over time. The thing we have to do with technology is we overestimate the ability for the technology to roll out as fast as it does, and we underestimate the bugs and the problems with it. And so this has been a really good lesson of great idea, great concept. It's rolling out, but it's going to take its time. And I think patience, as you know, is a virtue. So we will be patient.
Well, we really appreciate this opportunity to get an insight into the future through the mind of Tim Papandreou. Wow, this has been a great opportunity for all of us, and we thank you, and we look forward to having you. Can we welcome you back sometime later?
Anytime.
And we look forward to doing that. Well, Tim, thank you, and it's great to see you.
Likewise, all the best, everybody, and keep doing what you're doing. You guys are doing awesome stuff.
Okay.
All right.
We'll see you. Thank you, Tim.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, now we transition to the opportunity to hear from Marc Manning. You'll see a little bit about his background. Marc, welcome to the Chang Robotics Brand Call. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
I know that you met the founder and know Matthew Chang really well from your days at Georgia Tech together. And I know you went on then and earned your master's degree from North Carolina State and have been a mechanical engineer of note. I know you and I share experience having lived in Japan, you working for Cummins and Komatsu, and it's kind of similar time that I was teaching at Waseda University. So I'm looking forward to this discussion, and I just want to jump in and ask you the first question and sort of bring us up to date on your career experiences that prepared you to be an expert on industrial vehicles and zero emissions power.
Got it. Yeah. So my first job out of college, I was fortunate to be working for Cummins, the largest independent diesel manufacturer in the world. Now they produce electric powertrains and batteries too. But at the time, it was, I'd say, a dream job. I was doing combustion engineering. So what people would equate that to is, and the way I explain it to people is, I basically did what Volkswagen did, but legally, right? So at least allows people to understand. So what we do is, I was at a joint venture manufacturing plant with Cummins and Case New Holland, the tractor manufacturer, and we produced, and I worked on the QSC and QSL engines, which were the 8.3 and 8.9 liter engines. Those are the industrial ones. So I worked on anything that would be considered off-highway equipment. Worked on those for tier 3, worked on that for 3 years. While there, I was fortunate that Cummins paid for my master's degree at NC State. And then I was yet again fortunate enough to be working somewhat closely with Komatsu in Japan, because the way my job worked is I supported, the engine calibrations in the UK, Brazil, Japan, and Consolidated Diesel in North Carolina. So, at the end of that time, I got to go to Japan for 3 years as an expat. I was at a Cummins Komatsu joint venture called Industrial Power Alliance. And from there, we basically made the engines. It was part of our customer engineering side, where we made engines that worked for Komatsu product, right? So I was one of about 3 or 4 Cummins employees over at the joint venture. That was also a joint venture manufacturing plant co-located with it. So helped support, Komatsu builds across the U.S. with all those same manufacturing sites. And I helped, put the product. I went from helped on the 3.3 liter engine all the way up to the 8.9 liter engine. And it was mostly emissions after treatment, supporting that for tier 4 interim. At the end of the 3 years, I came back to the U.S. and I was responsible for the 3.3 liter engine. That was one of the ones I was working on in Japan with Komatsu. When I came over and was in charge of that one, we helped start and ramp up a contract manufacturing plant up in Chennai, India. So we would resource all the components from Japan into our India source base. And then we were trying to make it to where basically we doubled manufacturing worldwide from around 26,000 engines a year to about 52,000 engines a year is what the plan was. So worked on that for about 3 years. I had a team that supported me in Japan. I had a team in India that was doing a lot of the resourcing, a lot of the new testing to make sure components were better than or equal to the Japanese counterpart product. Helped launch that product, helped support warranty for that product globally, because the engine was used globally as well. I always used to joke it was like the British Empire, sun never set on it. So then when at one point I had an inkling I really wanted to move to a bigger city. I was based in Columbus, Indiana. Having been in Atlanta and then also being in Tokyo, I had that urge to move to a bigger city. And also I knew that, diesel engines were going to, my job had a limited bandwidth just being a diesel engine manufacturer engineer. So what I decided to do was figure out how I could get into the zero emission space. Then I applied for a job at Chicago Transit Authority, and I helped lead their launch of zero emission buses at CTA. So I launched the first 2 electric buses in Chicago Transit Authority, which were New Flyer. The first 2 New Flyer buses actually launched in the U.S. What was also great about that job, right, is I was very passionate about public transit after being in Japan, so it was great there. So I got to make an impact, on public transportation. Then I became leader of the engineering for buses at all of Chicago Transit Authority. So buying all the buses, supporting all the buses in warranty, supporting our maintenance facilities and things like that. That was 1,800 buses. Chicago Transit Authority is the number 3 largest in terms of buses at the time. Then I got a headhunter came out to me, and while I was there, I was also leading the zero emission bus program for CTA. So if anyone goes to Navy Pier and sees electric bus charging stations there, that was part of the project I led. I helped. Another good part about it is I learned how to write grants. I learned how to win grants, so that was a good experience there. Then I went to LA Metro, which is the number 2 largest transit bus agency in the U.S. So we had about 2,400 buses there. Similar job, led their bus engineering, also led their warranty support. Over my time at LA Metro and Chicago Transit, I led over $1 billion in acquisitions for buses and charging infrastructure for those programs. Led their zero emission bus programs, electrified a BRT up there, which was about 45 buses, also using en-route charging, which I was also a member of the standard committee for 3105 for SAE, which is a charging standard. And then I was also a standard committee member for the APTA, which is American Public Transit Association. After that, I decided, I wanted to try, to influence a little bit more. And at that point, I, joined Jacobs Engineering to help on their transportation decarb group. At the same time, I started working with Matt on the Kodiak technologies, and helping help develop the architecture that it is today, that would help you have a parallel hybrid fuel cell battery electric vehicle. And while I'm at Jacobs as well, what I do is I help fleet customers understand how they go from an internal combustion engine to a zero emission vehicle, whether it's hydrogen or battery electric. So that's kind of where I'm at today. And, and with this project, I can help with understanding what the client needs are. I can understand what the vehicle requirements are, and I can understand how to deploy them effectively.
So let's talk about taking this zero emissions experience and your expertise. How will this adapt in an airport kind of situation where, obviously they have their own bus fleets, but at the same time they've got the snow blowers in all of the northern airports. They've got all kinds of constraints and targets that they want to hit in terms of on-time departures and that kind of thing. To give us an idea how this is going to work potentially in the future, and how will a vehicle specifically like a battery-powered snowblower enable an airport to be closer to their zero emissions targets they have?
I think I guess the benefit that, airports and other clients have, right, is I'd say transit buses and even some passenger vehicles to an extent, right? But transit buses have helped figure out, and helped refine the technology for what, the snow groomer and things like that. Some of the, components that we are using and some of the suppliers that we're using, right, are already in transit buses, right? So I'd say the benefit is that, as this products they go into the snowblower, they've already been at least tested and validated in a transit bus operation, which is a pretty harsh environment, stop and go. So you're getting that benefit of that, and then also the other benefits you're getting is the charging standards are pretty much, defined at this point for medium and heavy duty, right? There's still the megawatt charging standard that's coming out. However, when I was in public transit, right, there was the first chargers that I had for New Flyer were not any standard, right? They were not CCS1 type, CCS type 1. So now the charger standards are pretty set in stone. There's ways to do temporary charging, a little bit easier, so you can go out and procure the vehicle and somehow charge it at least temporarily, right, through welding plugs, etc. Those didn't exist when I was first launching buses at CTA, right? So I think you've got that. There's easier, you can model things a little bit better now because there's more understanding of the environment. But I think in the industrial standpoint, right, everything's kind of niche. So it does require you to know how the product's running and understand that kind of thing. So that's the one thing that's different from transit and industrial, is that there is I'll call the niche operating and application of the snowblower as well. So
you mentioned to me when we previously talked about how a business case application like the snowblower can really prove out the technology for a lot of other industrial vehicles. Could it be, could go to construction, mining, what have you. So what makes you excited about the future in terms of these vehicles, and what do we have to look forward to?
I mean, I mean, as an engineer, I'm just excited by new technology, right? So for me, that's probably the biggest excitement of it, right? And obviously seeing the impact that, localized emissions can have on the environment, right? I think that's a huge factor, right? I mean, I think you can see you may not see it now, but you'll see it in the future on how it will help impact lives, whether it's asthma rates or, non-attainment zones or things like that, you're having an impact, right? I think, you may not see it now, but I think that's really what really kind of drives it home for me is like, you know, honestly, designing a diesel engine, right, was not, it's been done before to me, it's been done. It was keep getting evaluated and improved emissions, but now it's a little more exciting, to deploy these new technologies. So, yeah, I mean, that's what gets me up, at least. So.
Great. Well, this has been a super great opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about you, Marc, and what you've done. And it directly applies to some of the things that you are doing to help Chang Robotics and others are doing on the team to make things happen. So we really appreciate you being here today. We really enjoyed getting the chance to get to know you a little bit better. And at this point now, I want to turn back some time to Matthew Chang, who will take us home at this point.
Super. And we're going to start off by just making sure that folks that are viewing this call had the chance to check us out online. One of the things we like to do is really focus on thought leadership. I'm also an engineer, just like Marc, and somewhat of a futurist like Tim. And so what we really try to do is make sure that we're contributing to the national conversation and dialogue. So if you haven't had the chance to check us out online, a quick Google search will reveal lots of content. We spend a lot of time giving back to the community in terms of thought leadership, organizing events, and being contributors to the nice futuristic movements that other people are championing. So here's a couple highlight reels that are just from this year that you can see, and a quick Google search will bring you lots of information. I did want to comment and thank Tim Papandreou and Marc Manning. So I wanted to comment on what I just heard, which is there's a strong connection between the environment and technology and workforce and technology. We are trying to position ourselves at the center of that connection point. And there's also a strong connection with government. And Marc mentioned that the early investments by government are now what have unlocked a category of technology that allow people like me to go to the next level through development of new technologies and systems. So that is very important. And I know it's not always popular to think that governments are moving the needle, but we can now look back and see the benefits that society's had from the space program and the government's early investment in that. And I think zero emissions is one of the major areas that the early investments that were made by the government are going to continue to play out. And projects like Waymo wouldn't be possible without partnership with governments that were willing to embrace and allow the testing of those technologies on their city streets and create frameworks so that it's done in a safe and equitable manner for the citizens that need to get moved around. So that's a critical link, and I think both Tim and Marc have played a significant role in public service. For those that didn't know, I think Tim didn't have time to cover it in his bio, but he was the Chief Innovation Officer for San Francisco, overseeing a lot of new technology deployments in his domain, including Uber. And Marc talked in depth about the role that he played in civil service, helping the largest transit agencies migrate to a zero emission standard. So if you'd like to learn more, please check us out online. And then we want to thank Tim and Marc for not only being, good friends to our business, but also contributors in our most important strategic projects. So let's jump over. So at this point in time, we would like to create a call to action. And for the people that view this, we'd love for you to get involved. Chang Robotics is a big open tent. We're always looking for more help. We're always looking for more talent. So how can you help? Well, there's three things that everybody has in some ratio, which is time, talent, and treasure. So for time, for those looking to move the needle in the projects and the systems that are going to change the future, we'd love for you to get involved. So please make sure you reach out to us. You can connect with us on LinkedIn or through our website, and we can get you in the funnel. And we have just an amazing bench of talent. The folks that you saw earlier are representative of the caliber of folks that are actively helping us shape the future. The second would be talent. And the way I like to think of this is, do you have resources or connections that would be helpful for us? A lot of the stuff we're doing goes through the government, and advice, networking, and connections are critical to connecting government with industry. And it could be that you have some other form of network or talent that you can help us with. So if you have some way that you can help us go faster or to overcome some of the regulatory hurdles that we're facing, then we would love for you to reach out. And please help us do this, because what we're trying to do at our company every day is move the needle for future generations. And don't underestimate your own ability to help us do that. And then finally, treasure. For years, Chang Robotics has been not accepting investment, and we get approached all the time. How can we invest? Well, our company remains a partnership, and it remains only open to ownership by people that work in the company and earn their way to a position of ownership. But we are excited to let you know that we are opening up a fund where people can invest in specific projects. And so what we've done is we have created a short list of 6 projects that are investment ready, that have already been through our diligence in terms of technology, management teams, and governance. And we are now aggregating those first 6 companies to be invested in a vehicle that we have now called very creatively the Chang Robotics Fund. So if you would like to invest alongside of us, and we don't do anything where we don't put our money where our mouth is, we have already invested in each of these companies that we're mentioning. And we leverage our extensive network of experts and partner companies, some of which are shown here, to make sure that each of our portfolio investments have the best chance of succeeding. We want the founders of those companies to leave a lasting legacy. They have poured years of passion in, and the themes of that are really workforce, energy, and environment. And so those 6 companies you can learn more about by at the end of this presentation. We'll give you an opportunity to connect with Chang Robotics Fund, and you can learn more there. That fund is being administered by Dr. Don Capener, who facilitated today's call, and we brought on an impressive list of partners to help us with it, including Fund Launch Live out of Silicon Slopes and Board of Advisors out of Tampa, Florida. And so we're bringing the A team to this. We're very serious because we're serious about the future. And so if you have some treasure that you would like to help, if you'd like to invest alongside of us, then we have created a vehicle by which you can do that. And you can learn more on the next slide, which will be the link to connect there. So it's very simple. You can either use your phone and grab this QR code, and you can go directly to the website, or you also have the domain there, which is cer.fund. So that's cer.fund. And by connecting there, we'll take you to the next steps of learning more and potentially placing an investment to help us help companies that are really trying to shape the future through workforce, energy, and environment. That's it for me, Don.
Thank you, Matt. And at this point, like to open it up for any questions. Anyone like to ask a question of Matthew or myself? Please put those forward in the chat, or we'd love to hear from any of you out there.
Awesome. Yes, I received some in the chat. The first one is, are there minimums for the Chang Robotics Fund?
Yes, there's a minimum, and the Chang Robotics Fund is designated for qualified purchasers. The minimum for the fund for the institutional level is $1 million investment. And then for individual contributors that fit the investment criteria, we're able to lower that on a deal-by-deal basis, and you just have to reach out to myself or Don Capener if you're interested at a lower level. But for institutional investors, such as private equity or family office or other funds, then it's $1 million is the minimum, and there is no maximum. We will be accepting investment up to $50 million before we close this fund. And we already have a pretty impressive list of companies that have subscribed to go ahead and make the first investment. So we're excited to welcome that initial cohort of investors. And then we're very excited to help the founders of our portfolio companies really go fast through technology and world-class engineering and the professional support that we can provide.
Awesome. Okay, I have another one asking if someone wants to have a deeper conversation with Tim, Marc, or even you guys, how should they go about doing that?
You can contact me directly by using the QR code. Also, you can provide your information, your contact information, and any comments, requests, and we'll follow up with you.
Awesome. I see another one. Can you give us a sneak peek, Matt, on some upcoming milestones in the next few months for some of the portfolio companies you mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for one, we're going to be taking a waste product, which is municipal waste oil. That shows up at every restaurant and every wastewater treatment plant. And we are converting that to a clean, green biofuel that can be used by cities or sold by cities to create an additional revenue stream. So we love projects like that where we're taking a waste stream that is headed for landfill or incineration and is now going to be part of the revenue and the green revolution in America. So that is a very important milestone. Another one would be around nutrition and vertical organic farming to help solve food deserts and the national obesity epidemic. So we're incredibly excited to be partnered with a founder who has found a low-cost and scalable way to create vertical organic farming. The impact this should have on the American diet will be profound. For those of us on the East Coast, we know that if we have a salad or if we open a bag of spinach and we check the label, it was probably produced in California or Arizona. It was put into cold storage and then eventually trucked across the country, and we get to eat it 7 or 10 days later. And oftentimes, especially in my house, we comment on how quickly food goes bad. That's one of the main reasons is that food that you're eating, even if it's fresh vegetables, is actually not new. It's been around for a period of weeks already before it makes its way to your plate. So we think creating food locally creates a lot of opportunities for improved diet. It helps make a major dent in the food desert situation that we have in the US. And for those that have never experienced living in a food desert, they are real. They are very real. And there's large economic zones in our country that don't have access to full service grocery stores and that may not have transportation to get to full service grocery stores. So hopefully from this conversation today, you've seen we're really trying to solve the gambit. Tim Papandreou talked about access to transportation, and now we're talking about access to nutrition. Those are two profile companies that are in the fund right now, and we're very excited to be able to open up access to those using the Chang Robotics Fund.
Yeah, so I want to thank everyone for participating. Thank you for those questions, Cheyenne. Thank you, Matthew, for your answers. We look forward to the next brand call, which will be on June 26th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll have two new guests, which we look forward to introducing Paul Boyton and Tim Way as our guests. So look out for that invite, and we thank you for your participation today in today's brand call and look forward to seeing you again. Thanks, everyone.